You're listening to The Hurt Locker, the podcast that opens the door on men's mental health. And tonight's guest is comedian Ali Woods. Ali, welcome to The Hurt Locker.
Thank you so much for having me, Yinka. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a bit worried about how much I was wanted on this podcast, how bad you think my mental health currently is, but it's always good to see a mental health professional. This is the best way to do it. So thank you.
Okay, so tell me, uh, you're on The Hurt Locker. Tim's wanted you for a long time to be on, so he's been tracking you for the longest time. What was your apprehension about being on then, initially?
No apprehension. It's just a calendar thing, man. It's a calendar, weekday evenings. I'm normally gigging.
Okay.
I had to wait for my career to take a downward spiral, to wait till I didn't get booked. It's a tough thing to try and get in the calendar.
Okay.
So I am more than happy to chat about mental health. God knows I've done it in my shows, my stand-up. So that's no problem. But sitting for an hour to do a podcast on an evening, that's tough. That's a tough one to get. That's a tough one to clear away, to get
Well,
signed up.
yeah. We'll see how we get on then today. How are you? How's today been for you?
Yeah, it's been fine. Actually, this is my third podcast of the day. So
Stop it.
hopefully three's the charm. I'm in my groove now, I'm really, there's no filter anymore. That's gone a long time ago. The feeling that I hate my own voice is gone. Now we're just in full podcasting mode, ready for the Hurt Locker. So yeah, it's been pretty chill, to be fair. Had a catch up with a mate this morning. I'm getting that age where, you make morning plans and you stick with them. So I had a chat with a mate and then went and did podcast number 1. Then went got some lunch and did podcast number 2. Came back here, did some work here, and then the highlight of my day, the Hurt Locker podcast.
Of course, the highlights
How's
of
you?
your day.
Yeah. How's your day, Yinka?
My day's been okay. I've been doing some work, just working online, crisis telephone calls and all that, so that's been okay.
How do you
No,
find
it's
that?
great.
That must be tough. You don't mind
I
it?
love it. I love it.
Yeah. I got
I
this
mean,
saying. Sorry, go on.
go on.
No, I got this saying, which is, I'm great in a crisis. It's the peace I can't stand. I really like having very serious conversations. I find that it's a good thing to be doing, and I'm good at that. It's the chit chat that I struggle with. It's
Yeah.
there's pillows are 10% off. It's just nice, all that. I find that quite when I'm talking to someone who I feel is giving me indicators that they are not in a good place. I find it hard to ignore that. I'd rather just get into the deep stuff. And I think quite a few comedians are like that.
And so you don't mind that then when people are in crisis?
No, well, I've had experience of that. I had my best mate was in that situation for a long while. We were living together, so I know. Well, I mean, it's not obviously the easiest thing in the world, but I'd rather the truth was out and we were talking about it openly than the pretense that, oh, it's all fine, don't worry about me. That I struggle with. I struggle with that repression and the niceties, the sort of like stiff upper lip, keep calm and carry on stuff. I know I can't do that well.
Okay, so for the benefit of people, I've introduced you as a comedian, and we'll talk about that later on. But tell me, whereabouts in the country are you?
Based in London.
Okay, whereabouts?
Yeah.
North, east, south, or west?
I'm from northwest London. I live currently with the other wanker artists in East London. So I am moving now. I live in Hackney, but
Oh,
yeah,
you
I'm
live in
from.
Hackney?
Yeah,
Okay,
I can
cool,
tell
cool.
from your accent, Yinka, that you're an East Londoner too.
Of course, Ridley Road.
Yeah,
Ridley
that's the
Road,
one.
yeah.
I could get the twang. Yeah, that. Are you? Where are you then? Where are you?
Liverpool.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. So you've
When was
stayed.
the last
You've
time you
stayed
were in
around.
Liverpool?
I was doing Hot Water Comedy Club. I was doing my tour show, and it would have been March, I think. I was in Liverpool hanging out, and
How was it?
yeah, good fun crowds. It was a small crowd, but they were lovely. I think the Scouse crowd is very fun. Love their comedy up there. But that that was my crowd. I have a little crowd in Liverpool, but they're lovely and it's nice to perform to them, so can't complain, man. Hot Water's an amazing complex of comedy. I'm sure you've been. It's a
Yes,
mad place. I didn't realize
it
how
is.
big it's gotten. I haven't been there for years, so it's a crazy sort of mansion of comedy rooms and stuff. But yeah,
Absolutely,
no,
absolutely. Uh, Before we continue, do you follow football?
yeah, of course I do. Are you a
Uh,
Liverpool fan?
there's only two teams in Liverpool, Liverpool and Liverpool Reserves. Come on, lads.
Right. Okay. This is all right. Okay. Well, but do you know who I support, Yinka?
You're going to say Arsenal, aren't you?
You wish. Worse, Manchester United.
Man United, of course. That's where all the supporters are from, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. Put on
Down
your head.
south.
Wembley home game. Yeah, well, this so my dad's from Withington in Manchester. So
Okay.
he's from there. So he's been a Man United fan all his life, and then obviously passed on to me. And normally in the last 10 years, I'd be very sad about talking to you, but it's actually a lovely time to chat to you, Yinka, actually. It's a
Well, you know
fantastic,
what? Carrick's done blindingly well.
it's great.
He gets the DNA of what Man U are about.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't like your previous manager.
No, no, I think we're kind of done with the old school. Well, not old school, I guess the sort of rigid tactico coaches who only play one system, and that's that. You need, because at big clubs, because this is what Man United and Liverpool have in common. We are actual big clubs. We're not, the Man
Absolutely.
Cities of the world. So at these sort of clubs, you can't come in and just impose your
No,
own
your
style.
ego.
Exactly. You have to embrace the chaos, and the fans respond to that. And it's more a sort of, the formation can change, but it's more about the passion, the heart, the desire, the quality playing attacking football. That's what fans demand. They don't care what formation you're playing as long as it's that and encouraging youth and things like that. So it's been great watching. I was at Old Trafford. I'm a season ticket holder, so I was at Old Trafford watching a young academy prospect Mainu score the winning goal against Liverpool. Lovely, lovely time. 6 points this year. It's been great. I wish we
Okay.
could play you every week, but such a shame. I loved Slot this season. I thought it was a great manager. Such a shame. Should have
Well,
time.
you you've got a guy coming through the ranks, Shea Lacey.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's
They
great.
call him the Scouse Messi, don't they?
Yeah, yeah. All right. Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't
Yeah.
know. I know he was from that area, but I didn't know if you identify as Scouse. So had been a Man United youth product for so long. But he's really talented. He's really good.
Yeah, he's
But
got something
yeah,
about him. He's got
yeah.
something about him. Come on, then. We're here to talk about mental health. Let's dive in then. What's in your hurt locker, Mr. Ali Woods?
Well, what do you define as that then? Is it stuff that I'm keeping hidden, or is it more stuff that I might have talked about before, or well, how
A
would
bit
you
of both.
define?
A bit of both.
Well, I've got to say, I mean, I have my own podcast starting soon. Not to go straight
Okay.
into the promo, but it's called. You won't like this. Might not like this, Yinka, as the nature of this podcast, but it's called Podomistic because I am a very happy individual. Actually, no, I'm
Go on.
very hopeful, sincere, and you haven't always been, but certainly at this point in my life, I feel very good about my mental health and my own happiness. I don't feel like I have to fake it or that I'm kind of going through a difficult time in order to get somewhere better. I got a great job. I love my job. I got a great partner. I love my girlfriend's a bit. She's amazing. And I'm in a nice part of the world and having a nice time. I got great friends, great family. So I can't really do too much about that. But I will say there's been I want to say there's been 2 points in my life where I've felt closest to depression.
Tell me
I
about
don't
them.
yeah, I
If
don't
you
think
feel
I've ever
comfortable.
you what, sorry?
If you feel comfortable, tell me
Yeah,
about
yeah,
them.
of course. Happy to. I mean, there's 2 points, and I don't think I could ever be diagnosed in either time with sort of genuine depression, but it's definitely the closest I've felt to it. Because I'm naturally quite a get up and go kind of guy. I'd kind of guy who'd go to the opening of an envelope sort of thing. You miss 100% of the chances you don't take. I'm happy just turning up and chatting to an empty room, whatever. But I remember in my second year of uni. They all come at a similar time. It's sort of when I'm 20 to 22. And so first one's when I'm 20, and I remember in my second year of uni, I was at the Uni of York. I was up north. It was great, loved it. Lovely place. Have you been?
Yeah, I go through
Yeah,
York quite a bit. I go
yeah.
through York.
It's
It's scenic. It's beautiful.
beautiful, lovely place for a weekend. Just going there, walking around the beautiful city walls, the medieval stuff, and people are so friendly. It's lovely, right? Lovely place. Had a great first year at uni, made a bunch of new friends, had a whale of a time. And then I remember at my second year of uni, it was just small stuff like I had an injury in my first year of uni playing football, and I got had to have surgery on it. And then after that surgery, the doctor in my second year, the doctor was like, "Well, you got to give up running sports, basically." So I was a very sporty kid. I loved it. It was a very big part of who I was. I would identify as kind of a sporty person. Loved football, still love football. And he was basically telling me kind of, you've played your last football game at 20 years old. And that was kind of tough to to take. So it was kind of one thing happening. And then I don't know if many other people have had this experience at uni. I feel like it can be a bit relatable where I went and did English literature because that was just my best subject. I didn't really know what I wanted to do specifically. So I just thought, I'll go and do that. Like that's the one I kind of enjoy the most. Um, and in first year, it doesn't really matter because in first year, you're kind of just going out and having
Absolutely.
fun. Yeah. And then in second year, uni starts becoming this. Well, you do actually want to have something lined up at the end of this 3 years. You don't want to just have going out and partying and having a laugh because ultimately you might at the end be left with something quite empty and that you've kind of not actually been able to kind of shape any part of your life. So I remember starting to feel that um where I felt like my life wasn't really going anywhere in particular. And then I remember there was this girl at uni who I'd really kind of fancied, and we had a bit of a off on again, off again. It was mostly, me kind of chasing her and her kind of not wanting to get into anything serious, which is fair enough. And I felt like I didn't really either. I didn't really know what I wanted. I was kind of quite I knew I liked her a lot, but I didn't really know what to do with that, what that meant, and things like that. And um so I remember we had it off again thing, and then that kind of fizzled out. And I still liked her, but I was just like, look, that's how it is. And I remember talking to her about all this exciting stuff that she had planned for the summer. And I remember just feeling so jealous. I remember feeling like, man, she's like got this life, it's going somewhere. And it wasn't even like career stuff, it was just she was going on, like she'd had a holiday, she was going to visit a
Yeah,
friend,
plans.
plan, she had something, and it was, you're chatting to someone, it's genuine excitement. It's not someone sort of feeding you that, being like, and it's fine because then we'll be on holiday and that'll make me feel happy. It's like they're genuinely excited for this. And so I kind of remember looking back at my own life and thinking, like, I'm 20 years old. I already can't run. I'm already someone who, like, I felt like such a loser. I was like, this is, I have to give up this huge part of my life. My life isn't going anyway. I just felt like and this was coming up to maybe December in 2013. And, it's the nights are drawing in, it's getting darker. And
Mm.
I just felt like I've got no, relationship going on. And I felt like I was repeating the same thing every night, not every night, but the points that were supposed to give me the endorphin rush, the nights out and stuff, were just not doing it anymore. And I was repeating the same formula. Like I was going out a lot, but they weren't crazy nights. It was not like I was like waking up like, whoa, how did we end up on a yacht? This is insane, or whatever. It was just like, well, I'll go to the same club, drink the same drinks, have the same chats, and go home, have the same chips on the way home, and same hangover the next day. And just thinking like, this is shit. This is not good. And I'm someone who's always, my mum is from a working class background in Scotland, and she's given me a middle class upbringing in London. And she's always been a big thing of, don't waste your potential, don't waste what you've been given here. You've got such a good life, you've got to use it. and I just felt like, man, my life is just wasting away. And I felt pathetic. I think that's how I felt, kind of pathetic, that I was like, just being like, I just, what's the point? What's the point of my life is pointless, right? And I remember at that time, I kind of started chatting to people about that feeling. And one of my mates said, why don't you just like write a blog on it, but don't publish it? Just like, and it's what now is just journaling, right? You could just say that to someone and they'd have more understanding of what it was. But like 12 and a half years ago, to describe it, it was like a way of a nicer way, for a more accommodating way for me to think of it, rather than be like, why don't you write your emotions in it? It was more like, why don't you do something artistic and creative, but just keep it as a little secret. Um, so I started doing that. I remember in December 2013 was my first, and I called it non-published blog because I wanted to keep it hidden on my laptop. So I called it non-published blog. So I just had a folder called MPB, and that was in there. And this was, before Google Docs and stuff. So I was like writing in a Word document saved on my laptop, a file in this folder, and I just didn't know what to do. And I've said that I wrote that out. I don't know what to do with this, and just started having this stream of consciousness. And it really helped. It really helped so much. And I started realizing, right, what I like is I like having goals and things to look towards. So what I did was one of the things I did, I was like, I'm going to draw out a list of sports I can play without having to run. And I was like, I'm going to be the best darts player. I'm going to go and get real into darts. I'm going to be playing tiddlywinks, pool, all pub sports are going to be my domain, right? And then I remember thinking, okay, that's something to work on. I remember thinking, well, you're not getting any satisfaction out of this course. You're not doing any sports or whatever. So why don't you just do other things? So I remember thinking, what could I do? So I joined the radio. I was like, I could have a radio show. I messaged my friend, how about we start doing a radio show? It's really accessible. The radio was really good at York Uni. It was, I had like, won student awards. They were really into it. So I went and did that, and then just got this purpose in my life. And I'm a big believer in that. If you focus on what you can do, I'm kind of believing like stoicism, right? If you just
Okay.
focus on what you can control and work on that and work on yourself, then other things follow, because we all want to be hanging out with the guy who's happier and loving life. It's more attractive to whoever you're trying to date. It's more attractive to them because you're genuinely happy. You're not trying to just unload, try to have someone to help make you happy. And I just remember thinking in that second half of that second year how much better things were getting. I was doing stuff that I actually excited me. I cared about. I was having better luck with dating and just that turnaround. And after 6 months, I was just writing in this non-published published blog for 6 months, just continuously just about whatever. And it was great. And it got to the point where I actually stopped because I was kind of like, I don't feel like I need to do this anymore. And sort of summer and second year, I had a wonderful end to that uni year, and it was great. And that was the closest I'd got to kind of feeling like I did at that time, a feeling like I don't know what I'm doing with my life. But then it didn't last, actually, because then a year later, I mean, I had a good time for all that, but a year later, when uni was really starting to actually end, I started writing in the blog again because I could feel myself drifting into bad habits.
Yes.
Trying to get my validation from drinking, that feeling of where you're like, I'm not happy, so I will drink because that will make me happier. And that's
Mm,
always a bad way.
mm,
I had, it took me a couple of years to realize that, like, the drinking will only exacerbate the feelings you already have. So
absolutely.
going in happy, celebrate, like most people's funnest night is when they're celebrating something and they go out for drinks, because you're just in such a high and buoyant mood that you drink, and then you just get more fun and your inhibitions lower, and because you're in that, because that mood is so strong. Whereas the drinking, trying to generate happiness has always been a bad one for me. So I was doing more of that. I was trying to get validation through sex. I thought, maybe I was at the end of my uni time. I was like, maybe if I just try and sleep with loads of people, maybe that would be really cool. And it will be, I'll be, think of myself as really important or hot or whatever it is. And that was just foolish as well. And then I was just kind of really careless when it came to sexual relationships and, not treating people with the respect they would have deserved, because I was just like, well, just on to the next one. I just got to, keep doing that. And then I graduated, and I remember graduating and thinking, what have I got? What I got to look forward to? I didn't have any job lined up. I'd been interviewing for stuff. Um, I never got anywhere with it. I kind of started to get to like the final rounds of stuff, and then just it wouldn't go anywhere. And I was fortunate that I had a home to go back to. I could go live with my parents in North London. There's a lot worse places to go live. But I just remember thinking I was such a failure. I was such a failure of that. And I remember towards the end of uni, and this would never have happened to me. I had friends, in our last couple of weeks who were like, well, we're having a dinner, come over. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And I remember being quite delirious because I was going out so much, and it's now June. And you know what it's like. You go out till 4 a.m, you walk out the club, it's birds chirping and daylight. It's so disorientating. And then, you have your full day, go back, sleep, have your full day. And then you start going on it and getting on it and drinking again at, like in the evening. So you're in a club or bar, or whatever, from kind of 10. And then you come out for, I wasn't seeing the night anymore.
Yeah.
I was just, it was like I was living in Alaska, whatever. I was just having this constant daylight. I was like a Nordic spirit, just constantly just seeing the sun. And it was like some sort of strange, like midsummer horror movie. And that I was just like all this sun come like beating down the York sun, being like, you weirdo, like you're not human anymore. This is so like a reverse vampire. Very bad for me as a ginger to not have some moonlight going on in my life. And I remember just this person was having this dinner, and I was like, yes, of course, I'll come. Yes, sure, why not? And where their house was like, I don't know, 10-minute walk away. And it was at 6 o'clock. They said, come 6, come then. And I just remember thinking, okay, yes, I'll come. And it was 4 o'clock. And I was in my bed, just, watching. I gotta think, I mean, it could well have been watching TV. I wouldn't be surprised if I was watching some porn as well, and just watching those minutes tick by. Next episode, click next episode on the TV. Probably, I don't know what episodes of porn.
Probably.
Um, and then I just be clicking next episode. It gets to 4:30. Next episode 5 o'clock. Next episode 5:30. Next episode 6. And 6 o'clock happened, and I was just still in this bed, and I should have been there. And I was like, right, I got to stop watching TV. So I just closed the laptop, and then I just didn't move. I was just in this bed, and it was 6:15, 6:30, and I just remember thinking, why have I not gone? Why am I not there? These are friends. They'd invited me. This is a nice thing, and I just didn't have the energy until I eventually went, well, fuck it, let's just go. And I remember going, and I probably got there 45 minutes late from when I should have been. And I just remember going, sorry, I had work. I had to. And it was just a lie, because I didn't want to tell them. I just been in bed. So what would I guess been a depressive moment of my life, just feeling so worthless. And then I kind of carried that spirit into having the graduation, and then going back to my parents, being unemployed and feeling like such a loser. And I remember that feeling of waking up in my bed at my parents' house in my childhood room, no job. And I remember it so vividly, just thinking, if I go nowhere, no one's going to care. I'm not upsetting anyone. There's not anyone today being like, well, Ali's got to get here for 9 o'clock. I'm just an absolute loser. I'm just lying in this bed. I've got no job. I've got no plans. I can be here till the night, and then, nothing matters. And that was tough. And
How long did that last for?
I got to say, it must not been that. I remember 1 or 2 weeks, I think. Because when I do feel that, to be fair to myself, I don't let it last. I'm not someone who repeats bad habits. I'm a big believer in the Buddhist Buddhist feeling of like you are your habits, right? So if
Right.
you're a writer, you're only a writer if you're writing. You're only a comedian if you're going doing gigs. So if I'm lying in my bed, I'm like that defines who I am. So I don't want to do that. I
Okay.
I yeah. So I eventually remember what happened was it twigged for me in my head that I wasn't going anywhere because I wasn't doing anything I care about, and I care about uh comedy. So I care about comedy and football. Those are my two things. So what I did was I wrote out these little cards. I had these little A5 cards, and I thought, what are two jobs that I want, right? And one of them was comedian, and the other one was football journalist. I was like, I'm not going to become a footballer. That ain't happening. So I will become a football journalist. That's an achievable. Oh, I did English literature at uni. I could do that. And I could do a comedian. Why not? I like comedy. Why not? So I just wrote down these cards, the simplest steps to get to this place. So for comedian, I just wrote a card that says, do gigs for free, uh, then do gigs for some money, do well in competitions, get an agent, get on TV, be a comedian. So it was 6 steps. That was it. I was there. And then the journalist was like 4 steps. It was like write articles for free, write articles for some money, get paid properly to write articles. Football journalist. And then it felt a lot less scary because it wasn't this huge web I had to unweave. And this, I was like, well, that's just 6 steps. That's like fewer steps to make a wardrobe. You know, that's easy, right? So I can just do this. So I just started doing both. And I remember saying to my mom, I was like, I feel like I want to be a comedian, and I feel like I maybe would get a part-time job, live here, but focus on that. And she was like, no way are you doing that. She was like, not having it at all. She was like, she was like, if you wanted to be a comedian, you'd have done it by now. This is me at 21. She was like, you want to do this because you like it. I like eating biscuits and watching Coronation Street, but no one's going to pay me to do that. So I remember we had this big row, and she said, you got to go get a graduate level job. That was the thing for a year. You got to do that. So I was like, right. I saw my mate post about needing interns at his recruitment job. I was like, fuck it, let's do it. I like message him, got an interview, got that intern minimum wage. Fuck it, let's do that. I'm in the recruitment, hated it. Ended up leaving, getting a different job, which I stayed at for 7 years while I was going to be a comedian. But then I was just like, right, let's just do this. Open mic comedy. Let's just go do it. Articles on football for free. Let's just go do it because what else can we do? Let's just go do that. And that kind of started me on my journey to then where I am now. And I can say proudly that I've achieved one of my dream jobs here, sitting here. So that's where I was. But I remember, well, I mean, it's not to say it's an important job, but as in it was what I wanted to do. So I remember those 2 points in my life. And there was a time later where I was talking about with my friend who was going through something really tough. Those 2 points in my life, and that third one are the only times I've kind of journaled, and it's really helped. But those are the points where I felt the lowest. But the other one I've kind of talked about quite a lot. I've talked about on my own show and my stand-up about it, because that was a tough time. But those two ones were nothing to do with anyone else. That was just my problems that I was trying to deal with, and that's kind of how. That's the closest I've had, I feel, to having to generally being depressed.
Okay, nice one. Your podcast is going to do well because you can just talk and talk and talk and talk.
Oh yeah, I should have told you. You could have gone and had some food.
I
Got
could have
get
done. I
get a
could have
tea.
done.
But
Can I
yeah,
ask you a question though about the journaling? Because I knew you were going to do it, do it, do it, then stop because you're saying to yourself you don't need it anymore. And then when you stop doing it, you kind of after a short while you might plateau and then spiral down. Did you, when you were doing your journaling, or have you since doing the journaling, ever looked back at what you've written?
yes, yeah, yeah. Because I
And
remember. Oh, sorry, go on.
what does it reveal for you? Does it surprise you what you've written?
I think, and I haven't read it for a while. I don't even know if I still have it, but I remember when I started, I was like, I'm not going to read this. I'm just going to have it stream as consciousness because I don't want to. I don't want to write in a way that there is going to be a reader at some point. I want it to be really honest. And I remember then reading it later when I felt more kind of happy with where I was. And what revealed for me was, I think, how far I'd come. I think that was what I think I'd forgotten how upset I had been and how miserable I had been. Um, and then reading that, getting to the point where I was there kind of going like, I don't know what I have to tell you. Things are going well. I'm happy, I felt really proud of that. I think because at the time, I guess maybe I didn't realize how miserable I was. But then looking back from a place of happiness, I realized, oh, this guy's really sad.
To be honest, when you started talking, and I was laughing and smiling at the beginning, and then I heard the tone change in the way you were talking, and I could see that decline, as it were. Did you ever become suicidal, or would you acknowledge that?
No, never. No. I've had it at times in my life, that kind of what I would call a sort of a teenage emo sort of flicking the hair, kind of be like, man, everyone would be happier if I didn't even exist. But
Yeah.
it was never with any action. I never ever thought about it. I never planned anything. And I've had friends who have done that. And when they've told me their stories, I've never been close to that. But I did
You
definitely feel.
understood. You understood how it could be possible.
Well, yeah, I guess I felt like I wasn't adding anything, and that feeling of looking around a room and feeling like everyone seems to be fitting in here without I don't seem to be adding anything. And certainly when I'd be going on these drunken nights out and getting irritable because I was unhappy with my life and treating friends horribly, or sexual partners, being kind of like callous or flippant with them when that was not a situation to do that, and kind of looking back at that, and then in the morning being like, I'm such a piece of shit. I just feel like, yeah, I make everything worse. But it never became that extreme. I was like, I
Yeah.
should take my own life.
How did the how was it for you supporting your friend who was struggling?
Yeah, that was tough. So the situation with that is, and I've already talked about it in a stand-up special, so it's all kind of out there. And he's happy for me to have done that in the special and to discuss it. Obviously, I won't say his name, but we basically, the thing of that was, we lived together, and it came out that he had been depressed to the point of suicide, and none of us as a friendship group knew. The only one who knew was his then girlfriend, who he'd sworn to secrecy. She wanted to help, but she was like, I want to respect his wishes. He doesn't want me to tell anyone. And it eventually came out. He was on the phone to the NHS helpline. Crisis, your sort of situation, um, your line of work, and it transpired. And it's one of those ones, and this is kind of what I talk about in my show, where I felt something had been off with him at points in our friendship, and certainly in those drunken nights out. But I didn't really want to talk about it or discuss it with him.
Why not?
Because there was no inclination from his side to discuss things, and I didn't really know what I was looking for. I just,
But you sensed something.
yeah,
You
yeah.
sensed
Yeah. But I didn't know
something.
what. Yeah, I guess I didn't know what that was at the time, and I think I didn't feel like I had the tools to know how to
Okay.
bring up that kind of conversation. My thinking, my parents have always been kind of like, just work through things, just get your head down, work through it. And I brought a lot of that to um those sort of conversations in my youth, that sort of high performance podcast bullshit of
Yeah.
like, we'll just fucking crush it, just don't sleep, just make it happen. And and I look back on friendships and I go, that was so the wrong move. And I look back at myself and go, that was so the wrong move. And then that whole journey with him was sort of learning how to be an actual friend. Like, not, and I think in male friendships, and you're in Liverpool, and when I'm in Liverpool, it's very macho. Like, it's very, like, there's a lot, like, there's fucking guy, there's a lot of that, like, fucking, and it's like all the guys are in their tracksuits, and they're just fucking same face,
I
same
was in the 80s and 90s.
yeah. So it's it's fucking hard as nail, and I have realized through my male friendships how bad a friend I've been, to when friends have kind of opened up on drunken nights out and stuff, to have not followed up with that conversation, to have just gone, oh, well, last night was a bit drunk, we were all a bit crazy, when actually that friend only felt at that time that they were able to reveal something about themselves
Absolutely.
deeply personal. And so with him, I was like,
Absolutely.
well, I don't want to let him down now. So this came out, and then a month later it was COVID. So me and him were locked down in a flat, just the two of us. There was another flatmate when COVID happened, but he, bless him, he couldn't deal with it. It was because, one of the housemates was suicidal. So it was just me and him together in this flat. And it was me kind of learning how to talk about stuff. I read, is one of his favorite authors at the time was Matt Haig, and I read his book about, I've forgotten what it's called, uh, how to stay alive, is it, or something like that, or how to,
Tim will get that for you. Yeah,
yeah,
but
something like that.
I know of Matt Haig, yes.
Hey, yeah, and I asked my friend who's a psychiatrist and a therapist about the idea. I remember him giving me the great advice, which was just ask questions, and because at that time in my life I'd been a very, well, I'm type A sort of. This is just do this. Let me give you this. Let's write up a plan. Let's do this. And I think with him, certainly what helped a lot was just asking questions, letting
And
him
to
come
listen.
to conclusions
Absolutely.
and resolutions, reasons to stay alive. There we go. That's the Matt Hay book. Very good book, I felt, and I've given it to friends. I bought it for friends who have been in difficult situations. Um, and so that was an experience with him of trying to help. And like there's stuff like trying to get him to go back to therapy because he did the crisis therapy, had 6 sessions. They gave him an extra session because they felt like his situation was so severe. But after 7, they were like, we can only do this. I'm really sorry. So we'd recommend you getting a therapist. And he wouldn't, because he felt like he just wanted to deal with it on his own. It was kind of a way of like, how can I encourage him to get to this point without just telling him, just go fucking do it. It's like your own life you're playing with here. And I got annoyed at friends because there were friends who in COVID lived nearby, and they all left in COVID to go back to, family homes or whatever. And so they could have helped. They could have helped and gone for walks with him and stuff, but it was just me and him. My own parents were like worried about me, and they were like, you gotta get, why don't you come back here and stay here for a bit and have a bit of a break? But I didn't want to leave him. So it was
Did you
all that
feel
thing.
responsible for them?
That was something I had to work through, actually, which feels bad saying it, but I did. And then I had to realize, like, I not have a hero complex, and I had to feel that because it was that sort of situation. I had to be like, if I walk in to his room and he's killed himself, I can't blame myself. I have to be like, that is his life, and not immediately internalize that and think I should have done this or that, because that's a very, very real possibility. I want to help as much as possible, but it's his life. And
Okay.
so,
Can I go back quickly?
yeah, yeah.
His girlfriend, she said she wanted to respect his wishes, so she didn't want to break confidence in that. Looking back now, what are your thoughts on that?
I know her, and I know obviously her boyfriend, my mate, I know well, and I respect why she did it. I do, and when I found out the context of it more, the whole point, she was kind of saying to him, I will have to tell people unless you go to therapy. And he'll always go, right, next month I'm going to therapy. And then it would get to next month and he'd be like, actually, I've been feeling a bit better. So I think I maybe don't need it. And then during the course of the month would go down and be like, all right, next month I'm going to go to therapy. So she wasn't being completely passive. It
Okay.
wasn't like she was just like, okay, fair enough. She was like, I'm very worried. I want you to go to therapy. Can you please do this? And he would be kind of, I don't know if it's even a lie because he probably believed it at the time, but he would be spinning her this tale of like, I will, if it gets too bad, I will. It's not getting too bad. Um, but obviously it was getting too bad.
Absolutely.
Um, and she did, that's how I found out, is because she did eventually call me to
Okay.
see if I was back with him, because she was worried that he'd left hers to go basically do it. So she called me
Ali,
to
Ali, say the word suicide.
suicide.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, because I'm talking to you, Yinka, and you're obviously a sort of mental health professional, so I feel like we can sort of say these taboo
We
names.
we need to. We
Yeah,
need to all
I
the
do feel
time. We
when
need
I
to
yeah
normalize it.
yeah because when I chat to other people, I'm wary of that. Like I wary of where people stand with their own mental health and their own. And I'm a big believer of like you got to just get on with, get real with it, get on with it, and talk about these things because if you don't talk about them, you give them power. And that's what again a thing I kind of hated about the way his friends wouldn't talk about it with him, and they kind of do that thing when they talk around it. And how are you okay? And are you doing like, but what's anyway? Yeah, no, COVID's a bit of a weird time, and I think, oh man, you gotta destigmatize it because it's. And I said it to him. I said it's like having diabetes, and this thing that's going on in your head. And if someone had diabetes, they wouldn't feel worried talking about it.
No,
They'd say it. And diabetes is something that can kill you if you don't manage it. But if you do manage
absolutely,
it, you can have a very full and fulfilling life. But it's also something
absolutely.
that's not your fault. You don't have to kind of rack your brain, be like, why was I born with diabetes? You can just be like, look, that's the fact. It's just something in me. And it might be related, and there's other things that's going to trigger it and make it worse, but I just got to manage it. And that's why I said it to him. I'm like, let's just think of it like that. Like it's not something we have to have shame over or have to be worried about talking to people. But I hated how people would just be so English about it and just be like, well, he's got his thing going on, and I didn't like that.
Ali, how old are you now? There's two.
32.
There's
32.
there's two. What would you say if I told you that suicide's the biggest killer of young people under the age of 35?
Yeah, I can absolutely believe that, especially for men. I think,
Yeah,
yeah, I can believe that. Yeah.
yeah. It doesn't surprise you.
No, no. I think it's sad. I think the amount of men I know, I'm kind of getting out of that demographic, and so you maybe there's hope for a younger generation or whatever. But the amount of men I know who will talk about how mental health is this kind of like, oh, we're all fine. You just got to get on with it at the end of the day. And it's like corporate kind of, oh, yeah, of course, like, obviously, you should talk about it, but, whatever. But then we'll be so reticent to discuss it, to help their
Why do
friends.
why do you
And in
think
the
that
same
is?
breath, they might talk about having known someone who has killed themselves. And they'll talk about how, men have to just, you just have to kind of man up and get on with it sometimes. And then you're like, you literally have someone in your life that's killed themselves. And it happened to me. I had a friend in 2018 who did do it. And it wasn't a close friend, not like my best mate was going through it, but someone I knew, someone I was friendly with. I'd gone for drinks with this person. I've been to his parties. He was a lovely guy and he killed himself. And I thought, how did we create that environment where I don't know. He felt like he wasn't given the support he needed. And it bugs me. And you know what annoys me so much about it with these dudes is that they don't have the fucking bravery to talk about it. They talk about how it's like, you know, especially with the manosphere stuff about like it's weak gay cuck bullshit with people talking about that. And you know why you're not talking about it? Because you're not fucking brave enough. You're not fucking brave enough to cry in front of your friends, to open up, and it's pathetic. And it's only causing negative effects. It's only causing harm. That's all it is.
Are you still angry
With what? With angry with what would you say?
with your friend dying by suicide?
Yeah, of course, because he was a lovely person, and he was someone who no one had a bad word to say about him, and he was someone again who because his friend the one who introduced us called me to let me know what had happened, and his closest friends and his ex girlfriend knew about it, but it wasn't something he was obviously comfortable talking about, and it's and you just think when someone who and he was a comedian as well, and he was a funny one, and you think about that, and he would go on stage and make people laugh, and he would think that the world's better off without him. This like lovely, nice, wouldn't hurt a fly guy. I think it's such a tragedy.
It is. How can we change the narrative on that? How can we how can we make it easier for guys to open up and say, "Help, I'm struggling here."
It's tough. I think one thing for me I found is to talk about mental health, like physical health. And I
Yeah,
think because guys will happily sit around and talk about their rolled ankle from football or their their ACL or whatever, happily. Why can't that just be the same sort of discussion when it comes to mental health? I think that's a real thing that's helped me for sure, of just seeing it as this physical health. It's all part of the same thing.
absolutely.
Um, I think that's been good, but I really struggle with it because my hope was that men, because I grew up in an era. How old are you, Yinka?
I'm twice your age.
Right. Well, okay. Well, so younger than I thought actually, but but well, you look great for it. I wouldn't not a day over 61, I'd say. But
Not a day
yeah,
over
yeah,
61 indeed.
yeah. But yeah, so but you said so you grew up in the 80s and 90s, right? And then I would grow up in the noughties and there was this, it was still in the era of sort of lads mags and telling women to get
Yeah,
back in the kitchen and stuff like that. And my thinking was that as I'd grown older, was that it was going to be like, well, that was us, and young guys will get just nicer and better at that sort of stuff. And then when I kind of see the manosphere stuff and this sort of alpha male stuff and how much it's like resonating with young isolated men and the kind of incel culture and that it does sadden me because I kind of thought that would take care of itself. It would kind of phase out, that people could just talk about this stuff. But I find it a shame that maybe young guys don't to feel like it's weakness or whatever. And that's what really annoys me, is that the real bravery is being able to be emotional about these things.
absolutely.
And I find the rules of masculinity so fascinating, where it's like a man will win the Champions League and cry on on TV, tears streaming down his face, and everyone will the laddest lads will be like, fucking come on, they're just like tears streaming down their face. And that's seen as like heroic and manly to do it at that point. But your actual best friend isn't, you won't give them a space to let them cry or talk about how upset or miserable they may be. I think it's all pathetic.
Ali, when was the last time you cried?
I cried on my flight. I don't know if it was the last time, but it was in April, and I was flying to Australia with my partner. I was doing the comedy festivals out there, so I was doing Melbourne and Sydney. Great, and we were flying long flights. So you're watching a lot of films. And my partner, she'd watched this film called Eternity. Have you watched it?
No.
It's a recent.
But
It's a recent film. It's a great
okay.
premise. So basically, it's like when you die, you have to choose an eternity that you're going to live forever in. So it's like a
Okay.
beach eternity, or like a sort of, I don't know, like a train eternity or whatever. And this old couple, they've been together forever. The guy dies, and he goes and he's like, I'm going to wait for my wife to die because she's got cancer. She dies. She comes back, so they can choose together. But then when she comes back, her first husband has been waiting for 50, 60 years or whatever, like the who died at war and has been waiting for us. Now she's kind of got to choose who to spend eternity with, right? And it's a really lovely film. It's a rom com, really fun, really great, generally funny, and got great performance. And my partner watched it, and she was like, "I'd love you to watch it." And I was like, yeah, "Of course you like it. I'll watch it. We got loads of time." So I watched it, and it's all about kind of finding a person that you would be happy spending eternity with, and that eternity is a question of not just like who every day is a blessing and a beautiful moment. It's that feeling of like, can you be silent with your partner? Can you have downs with your partner? Can you have arguments and still love each other? Can you disagree on things and still love each other? Can the conversation be boring and you still want to be together? And I watched that, and then I thought about my partner, and this is someone who I've been with for almost 2 years now, and we're in love, and we've moved in together. It's the first partner I've ever lived with. We've moved in together, and I thought of her. She was coming on this trip with me because she would just wanted to be out in Australia with me. She didn't have work there. She doesn't work in this industry. She'd taken time off work. And I was thinking we were doing this trip together, even just being on this flight together. And I just started crying about how lucky I felt that I was with someone who I just felt so happy with, that I could have those boring times with those meaningful, boring times that just, you just want to spend your life with that person, and you know they've got your back. And I felt so lucky being with her in that moment. And yeah, I just started bawling, like really just saying thank you to her for being that person. Yeah, that was a couple months ago.
Okay. You spoke before during your student life about some of your behaviors that you weren't happy with. Have you made amends with yourself?
I mean, I think you're always a working project, so I wouldn't say any part is ever done of like your personality. I think certainly I've made a lot of progress in that. I know I used to. I mean, I went to an all boys school, and it was very much a kind of thing of like you were out on the pool, and the only reason to be out was to pool, and that was the only reason that you had a good night was like you went back with someone. It wasn't even about the sex. It was just like having gone back with someone and being like, yeah, that was cool, whatever. And I definitely made strides in that of feeling like, I can have a life that is not validated by female attention or sex or trying to prove something to, and it's all for male validation anyway. It's all
Absolutely.
to try and prove to your friends that you're cool. It's not about the actual connection with that person. And I definitely made strides in that. I'm definitely way better at talking to my friends about serious issues they have and mental problems they may have. I try to give space a lot more and hear from them rather than just trying to solve problems. And I think about those things and the empathy that I think I've worked on, and I think I've made a lot of improvements in that, but I wouldn't say I'm perfect in any of it.
Who is? I'll be honest with you. I like the way that you've opened up. Genuinely. I like what we're talking about. I like your forthrighteousness.
Mm.
You speak a lot of sense. You speak a lot of sense.
I'm waiting for the but. I'm waiting for the but here, Yinka. I'm waiting for the
There's no buts. There's no buts.
but you're a Man
There's
United fan, so you're obviously mentally ill.
no...
But I don't know, Yinka. I mean, I obviously I really appreciate you for someone who's had so much experience in this field, and as we've heard from this podcast, it's a lot of experience. But has so much experience in this field and knows what they're talking about. But I only feel, I don't know, I feel like it's one of those where the bar when it comes to men talking about feelings is so low, is so
It's
low
extremely low.
that,
It's extremely low.
yeah, if you're just someone who's happy to check in on your friends, which I can do now. I mean, it happened last week. Me and another friend, we talked to our friend about we might be a bit worried about the way he's approaching dating yeah, we're happy to do that. But there are so few guys that will do that. And I feel, that's why they all then go back to their girlfriends, wives, or whatever, and just dump all the emotional burden on them because they just have this night with their fellas where it's just like, oh, they have to keep the banter high and it all has to be like laugh, laugh, laugh and stuff. And I feel like lucky that I guess I've gone through something quite nasty with a friend that has opened my eyes to how shit a friend you are. And I do mean this sincerely, how shit a friend you are if you're unwilling to give your friend the space to talk about how they feel. And I wish I could go back and be a better friend to all those friends that I've not given that space to. And I would advise anyone that if you're really brave and if you need me to put it in toxic masculine, if that helps you, you're a pussy for not talking about your feelings. You're a cock, you're a bitch, whatever it is, whatever gets you fucking motivated, like when you're doing chest press, whatever you need, you are. Because the only reason you're not doing it is because you're not brave enough. And it's pathetic. So open it up to your friends, and you have better relationships and better friendships than you could ever believe. I will tell you that. I'll be honest with you. It's an amazing thing, right? And you never
100%.
know, you might save a life. I said this in my stand-up. My friend said to me, he said to me, if we didn't have those conversations we had, I don't think I'd be here. And as someone who obviously doesn't work in your profession, doesn't work in this space, I've obviously never heard that from anyone. And it's the most amazing moment in my life to have felt that I've had that impact on someone. And look, whether it's right or wrong, whether he was just saying it or whatever, I
He
don't know.
wasn't just saying that. He
But
wasn't just
well,
saying that.
yeah, but I just think to have had that effect on someone's life, it's the best thing I've ever done. So please go do it.
Thank you. Ali,
Thank you, Inka.
can I ask? We're going to finish shortly, and I think we've got to get you back on again and dive in I let you ramble for like 20 odd minutes first off. But can I ask you the question? You can only pick one person. Who is the most important person in your life?
My first instinct was my mum.
Okay. What if I said that you were wrong? What if I said to you that the most important person in your life is you?
Yeah.
How does that feel?
It doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel
Doesn't
like
it?
I
Okay, well,
just
let me say this. You're the most important person in your life because you're the expert of you. You know what makes yourself happy. You know what makes yourself sad. And only by attending to your needs first and foremost can you be fully there for all the people who you love and care for. And imagine this. Imagine if you took care of business for you. Imagine how much more richer and textured and layered that love and care would be for all those important people in your life. But it starts with you.
Mm. But I am pretty happy, Yinka. I'll tell you that.
I know you are. I know you are.
Especially with
I
us
know
finishing two
you
places above you in the league. I'll take that any day.
are. It could be worse. It could be. I could be a supporter of the Spurs.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Sorry, Tim. Sorry, I've got to throw that in.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, I do appreciate that. And to be fair, Yinka, I've always had that feeling when it came to dating. I've never been one of those people that's in dating placed importance on the other person to make me happy. Like, I'm always like, you have to be happy in your own company because that's the only person you're going to hang out with for your whole life. So if you're not happy being in a room on your own, that's a problem. But when it comes to who's important, I don't feel like I'm the most important person to me, but I do take your point. I think, you're right. Like and that's, I think, a thing in the Matt Haig book when it comes to helping others. It's like the masks dropping in the airplane when it's like you've got to put your own oxygen mask on first before
Yeah.
you can start helping others. And I do agree with that.
Okay. Like I said, we need to get you back on again. But
Oh,
I'm gonna
I,
finish or ask you this. You're on your laptop, okay? Have you had your dinner tonight?
I have.
You have? Okay. So we finished the Hurt Locker recording. You close your laptop, you snuggle with your girlfriend, and there's a knock at the door, and it's 12-year-old Ali at the door. What do you say to him?
So I'd say two things. I'd say Leicester 2016, put 1,000 quid on that at least. Whatever you've got, 500 to one, chuck that on Leicester. It's the first point of business, I will say to him. And then after that, I guess I'd say don't be afraid of your emotions and don't be afraid to be who you are. Because I think a lot of if I think about the 20 years since then, I think a lot of that time has been spent trying to repress emotions because I felt they were too much or I shouldn't be having them. And to be the kind of person that I thought people wanted me to be instead of maybe being who I am. And since I've accepted those two things, I think that's the main thing that's made me happier.
Ali Woods, you've been an excellent guest on the Hurt Locker. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yinka. Thank you so much for having me on. United, United, United.
Liverpool,
All right, Mike off, Yinka. I think
Liverpool.
you got on mute.
Thank you for watching. Remember, you are not alone. If you or someone you care about is struggling with their mental health, please see the contact information in this episode's description for further support.